Hey everybody, it's Jane Johnston with the Briar Hill Group at Remax Mosen, host of Vancouver Island Time and Community Talks, now once a week at 4:30. Today I'm here with Lori Frank of Lori Frank Mediation, Bettina Plendel of Bettina Plendel Financial Divorce Strategies. I can never remember.
Right.
and Laurel Dietz of Legal Coaching. How are you guys doing?
Good. Thanks. How are you?
Great.
I'm doing well. Yeah, busy.
Yeah, that's good. Why don't you tell us about that, Jane? Tell us about it.
Well, I mean, kind of the cork came out of the bottle, I guess is a good way to discuss what happened about 2 weeks ago. So we went to the latest phase, and I'm just finding a lot of people now are actively looking, so I'm getting a lot of inquiries. So what's happening overall is our net unconditional sales for June so far at 519. That's compared to 740 for the month last year. Our new listings are at 1,013, which is almost what we were at last year, which was 1,221. Our active listings are not as high yet. We're at 2,700. This is up from, I think, 1,500 when we first started talking in March. And we're still lower than the 3,040 for the month of June last year. And when you think about it month to date, we still have a week to go, so we're pretty good. New listings in the past week, we've had 316, pending 239. So list to sale ratios looking very good. Yeah, price changes are at 113. So that means that people are actively pricing their homes if they're not selling. I think we're going to see a really short market, depending if we have a second wave or not. How are you guys doing?
Good.
Good. Yeah.
Are the courts open?
Are the courts open?
Yeah.
They are not fully open yet. They're still gearing up. I'm still waiting for that go ahead that we can do some new filings. So for anyone who's applying for an uncontested divorce, all those filings can go ahead. There's some matters that can have hearings in Supreme Court, and we're still sort of on the urgent hearings matter in provincial court. So things are going ahead as far as the courts are scheduling trials for criminal matters and child protection matters. And so that's good. And I think that hopefully family matters will come next. They'll open it up so that we can get everything filed. Because, it makes it quite difficult, like when we're in the midst of a negotiation or a mediation and, we come to a bit of a standstill. What do you do? There's no way to pass that unless someone drastically changes their mind without the court being available. And I think a lot of lawyers are struggling to figure out how to resolve things for their clients without having that tool.
What about you, Lori? Are mediations happening still?
Yeah, it's quite busy. I think same thing. People are trying to get back to where they left off, and I'm just starting to book some in-person mediations. So I've got some spaces I use that are quite large, and we'll be able to sit apart and follow all the guidelines and everything. So people are kind of wanting to move back into that if they can.
Right.
I kind of prefer the in-person. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I would want to still do virtual.
I know it's definitely got its bonuses, but yeah. So I offer both to people, and whichever they want is fine with me.
Do you find is the interaction different face-to-face versus virtual?
Yeah, definitely. Sometimes face-to-face is good because people can have a much better sense of how somebody's feeling, or you got all the body language, right, which you don't get necessarily online. But at the same time, if it's a really contentious issue and there's hard feelings or difficult emotions, then sometimes online's easier because not having the person physically in the room takes away some of that.
Right. What about you, Bettina? You've been doing stuff virtually too, right?
Oh yeah. I was just smiling at some how interactions now. There's a new thing. It's the toe kick, so you kick each other toes. It's not the elbow anymore. It's the toes, and do it left, do it right. So it. People make fun of it and try really to take it easy. I feel, and yes, I'm back to in person, not in my own office space at this point. As yeah, it's I'm not that comfortable. But in other spaces, if there's enough space and sanitizer and everything, it's just for me. I'm basically I rent typically space as well, or I have my home-based business depending. And home-based again, I just say no, thank you. But in person somewhere else, it's lots of hand washing and sanitizing, and I'm glad to report my skin's getting used to it. I had really troubles. The people. I mean, I feel like everybody can't wait to go back to whatever the new normal is. But go back to something which is different than what it had been the last 3 months. Everybody is respecting that it's different, but clearly we can't continue as we did the last 3 months. I personally can't either, so I choose for my own. I've chosen for my own sanity to do that, because I need people around me, and it's just so much easier for work as well. As I'm personally a hefty body language person, and I need my, I just need that. It's easier. Right.
This is Laurel.
Yeah.
Yeah. No,
we're able to go into the houses now, and they've taken off the restriction of showing rentals, so we can now show rentals. And now also people can we can evict if somebody's buying a home. So some people were purchasing and they weren't able actually to complete because there were tenants in place. So that has all, you can't evict due to non-payment right now, which I understand, but it's very stressful as a landlord.
Yeah.
If your tenant isn't going to pay. Yeah.
Just frustrating, I imagine.
Yeah, and I think it's a lack of knowing. That's why I thought we could maybe talk about what's going on, because I think it's a lack of knowing, people not knowing what's going on, that they that gives them stress. So at least if they know, they can resolve their issues. Are things typically quieter for you, Laurel, in the summer?
I mean, I kind of follow a little bit with the school calendar, where we see bumps in relation to like we see quieter times during school vacations. I don't know if we'll see that this year. I wouldn't say that summer is typically quieter, but it is a traditional time for the judges to take off. And I mean, most people take time off in the summer, right? It's not unusual, but almost it seems like as a result, people get into more of a frenzy to get into their lawyer's office. And so I don't know. I find that the summers, August gets busy. September, October are very busy months.
Yeah, same in real estate. I think it's because after people have time to talk, then they make the decision. I don't want to live with you anymore. And then they move on.
Maybe that's it. Yeah. Who knows? Just having that space to kind of like make the decision.
Yeah, I find with the kids, with those who have children, they really got messed up basically in their schedule and routines through school. So the kids were out of school. Now they're partially voluntarily kind of ish back to school. And now actually school is over as of next week, I think, or this week. So I have a few who said, you know what, I need to sort all this out, and then I will be back in July. So I expect that there will be more people coming actually, as again, they were somewhat messed up with the school thing.
That's
and
true.
I don't know if summer camps are happening. I think so, right? A few are happening. No? Okay.
Well, with
Summer.
the school year being done, then, you know, people, there's all sorts of stuff that happens. I mean, I guess it's not really happening this year, but there's still stuff people are stressed about. So I think you're right, come July and August, after the end of that, after June, people will be busy and trying to get stuff done. And with the sunshine, people feel more positive, I think. And so we're able to tackle their problems.
I'm just looking for the
Shane.
sun.
Yeah, not today, but come, you know, come July.
Occasionally, sunshine.
Lori, are you finding that people are renegotiating now that we're sort of back to semi-normal?
Not really renegotiating, but certainly a lot more calls, just people moving on and making decisions about things and wanting to get their first agreement in place. Yeah, I think maybe that period of time that we see over summer where people contemplate things and then by September, October, they're taking action. I think maybe they kind of did that through COVID and now they've had that time to contemplate and now they're taking some action a little earlier than they might have normally. So yeah, we'll see.
There's a bit of a move out of city centers.
Oh yeah.
To rural properties with space. To homes with 2 living rooms.
You can get families 2 living rooms. It's either a husband and wife who don't want to separate but want to still live in the same house but don't want to be near each other, or it's, you know, doubling up with the grandparents kind of thing.
Right. Yeah.
It's more just like they're sort of appreciating the home space more. Like I've sold places to retirees before, and they've been like, "Okay, you know what? Here's the thing. He listens to the TV so loud that I need to have my own space over here." And even like I have this setup here is in the middle of the house, and everyone just is looking at me like with daggers. It's like at 4:30, everybody quiet. So I think
you need a new house.
Well, I was showing a property on the weekend, and this lady's like, "Yeah, he's a loud breather." I need my own office.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, well, I think, you know, with COVID, many people discovered now the home gardening and getting their own veggies started, and they pretty much enjoy that, and they get the point of it. And I have to report that unfortunately a few are really stressed about money, right, because they lost their jobs. So I'm pretty sure a few home sales are just because they can't serve the mortgage anymore. They don't know how to go ahead, which is super stressful. If now maybe on the top of that going through a separation, how to pay for the rents. As you know, I'm in Nanaimo, but even here the rental space is so expensive. It's really more affordable to have a mortgage, but now with the change in mortgage rules, so some are really in a tough position.
Yeah,
I find, and I mean, I am very creative, but it's if there's nothing there, then it's tough to make something up.
Yeah. So what exciting cases do you guys have going on right now? Anything?
Exciting cases? Like we're all curious to tell you anything. That's all privileged, confidential.
What things that are happening? So, for instance, are you finding now that for me, I'm finding I'm getting people who just generally the kids have left and they're a bit older, and so they're wanting a divorce because they just want to. They figure the co-parenting part is over, and I think they looked at one another. I wasn't kidding, actually. They looked at one another and they kind of said, "Okay, you know, we're friends, but we don't want to go any further." So it's not acrimonious.
Mm-hmm. Those are always delightful files to work on, actually. Delightful because they're both kind of over it, right? And they just want to get things settled. They don't want to be mean to each other. They want to make sure each other's taken care of. and you just kind of are able to split things up in a really fair, good way, and both people walk away comfortable and secure. And they spend the least amount in legal fees.
Right.
And it's usually pretty good. So I like those files. I'm finding I'm actually doing a lot more uncontested divorce, meaning people who have done all the separation work maybe ages ago, and now they're just that last paperwork piece that they just want to get it done. And then the other is cohabitation agreements. I'm getting a lot of those people wanting to be very careful about protecting what's theirs.
They learned from the first one. Yeah, no, that's perfect.
Yeah.
Well, I hear a lot from people who are mainly women, I have to admit, who contemplate separating, and they really don't know, can I afford? And I have surprisingly, at least once a week, a conversation like that with someone who phones me in and is wondering how that would look like if they separate. Often they have never worked. The husband is a very good breadwinner and lots of money, but now what? They are like 50, mid-50s, 60-ish, close there. Now what? They know they have many years to come. Not many chances to go back to work because they haven't really worked the last 20, 30 years. So tough call here how to make that happen. And I'm always surprised that the other party has no clue. And I always say, well, maybe find out what's going on the other side, and you might find some surprises, or
the fact
consider the outcome, right? That's what I always say, consider the outcome, because once you said, hey, I think we are over, that's it. It's out there.
Probably the other partner has no clue, and that's the reason why.
I don't know, but yeah, then often half a year later the phone rings again. So yeah, we are doing it now. And then I phone my friends like you guys, and we talk about them, and help them through that. As you said, most are, and I can confirm with Laurel that most people have figured it out, and those who are big into the fight, I don't deal with those anyway. I can't. I can assist the lawyer.
Right. Are you finding, Lori, like what do people do actually when they're sending their kids to post-secondary institutions? How do they work out payments for things like that?
Sometimes they've already made the agreements around that before the kids get to that stage. So they've agreed in principle that they'll continue to support the kids through post-secondary, and they might have agreements that they'll be paying 50-50 or some other kind of arrangement for that. Then other parents have found they might put some sort of review into their agreement where, at age 17 or age 18, when that child hits that age, then they will review at that point, because sometimes they want to kind of know what their child is hoping to do before they make the plans of how they're going to support. But it's something that they can do ahead of time, or kind of wait till closer to the time. But there's definitely it's definitely something to consider, because in terms of child support guidelines, that's something that parents are required to consider.
I think it depends also, like if they're, as you said, what they're going to do. So if they're going to study in the US, or if they get a scholarship, or it's a whole big schmozzle. I'm just thinking about it because my son's graduating, but he's not going to university or college next year.
Yeah, I've even had parents agree that they'll continue to support their child even if they take a year off school and then decide to go to post-secondary, because a lot of kids do that. So it just all depends. It depends a lot on their where they're at financially as well. Some feel like they can make that commitment ahead of time because they know they're going to be fine financially. Others kind of want to see, well, what does that mean? Are they going to Camosun, or are they going abroad or something like that? Because that's a totally different conversation in terms of what can they do to continue to support. Same with other kids who may be dependent in some other way beyond the age of 19. Those kinds of conversations need to happen.
Yeah, like mental health issues and care and stuff like that.
Yeah, disabilities, those kinds of things. Yeah. But I have been noticing I'm getting more. I do hear the child reports, and I've been getting more of those recently, where it is families who have teens, and they're wanting their teens to have a voice in whatever's happening, whether it's parenting time or those kinds of things. So it's that's another piece of it, is sometimes is including their child in those conversations.
Right. And so the child gets the choice of who they're going to live with and what the arrangements are going to be, or things like that.
Not the choice. It's that their voice is being considered. You know, they want to hear from the child what are their wishes, but it's still ultimately up to the parents to determine what that's going to be. But the thing with teens is, you know, it's hard to force them to do one thing or the other, as opposed to when you're little. It's much easier to move kids across houses, but to tell a teen, no, you have to go somewhere, that's a little bit more difficult if they're resistant to that. So that's where we include them in the conversation and try to figure out something that meets their needs, meets the parents' needs.
Laurel,
A mediator would do that. I don't do that with the reports, but
right. Laurel,
or their counsel.
do you find that
Sorry.
it's okay that they what happens when things change, when a teenager wants to change things? Like, oh, you know, I want to live a little bit more with dad, or I'm going to go, instead of 1 week on, 1 week off, we're going to do 2 weeks on and off. I mean, I
think it really depends on the teenager. Like, there's some teenagers who are going to be a lot different than others, right? So some teenagers are going to be very influenced by what their parents decide for them, and other teenagers are going to assert themselves a lot more. And so it really depends on the personality of the child. But it's true, you know, if a 16-year-old says, actually, you know what, I'm going to go live with dad, I mean, there has to be an analysis there. Like, why is it that you're wanting to go live with dad? What's going on at dad's house? If dad's a totally safe parent and there's no real issue with the child living with dad, and it's going to be a hard fight. I mean, so just to put it all in context, you know, there's this myth out there that says, you know, when a child turns 12, they get to decide which parent they live with. And it's like, that's just like just a myth. You know, you wouldn't let your child choose to eat candy for breakfast every morning. So why would you let them
Really?
decisions of their life completely on their own? You wouldn't, right? Like, this is like something that they are still, their little brains are probably still too immature to really comprehend the consequences of a certain choice. And it's like, why would you ever ask a child to choose between two parents? That's just cruel. It's the parents' decision. It's the parents who need to decide together how things are going to happen. That said, so we have this list of best interests of the child, and one of those factors is, what are the child's views? So, I mean, regardless of the age, sometimes children have very strong views about where they want to be. And depending on their level of maturity, the kind of, what are the views that they're expressing, and like, why are they expressing those views sometimes, is considered, and it might sway that little needle a little bit more towards one decision over another.
Right. It might be neighborhood, right? Because of where they grew up, or it might be related to their friends, totally not the parent.
And it could be many, many things. And I think that as they get older, that voice becomes more of a deciding factor, more of a persuasive factor, I should say. And so, because I mean, at the end of the day, if you're going to tell a teenager, like Lori says, like a 16-year-old, sorry, you have to live with mom, and the 16-year-old's like, I'm not going to live with mom. You know, where it's better to work with them where they're at, where they're going to be safe, or are they going to vote with their feet? As a colleague of mine likes to say, we don't want our children voting with their feet. Often they will. And it's like, if that means, so what happens then if they vote with their feet? Are they going to end up on the street? Are we going to have to get the police involved in this family matter? We don't want any of that. Like, these are all bad things.
Yeah.
You don't want your friendly local police officer coming and trying to help with your parenting pickups and drop-offs. That's just like, really only for the worst circumstances.
Yeah. So
Yeah, but
go ahead.
sorry. No, but what I experience is that really parents try to get houses very close by. So if they own the home, that the one who's moving out and they have their children, that the person moves not next door necessarily, but I have that seen as well, where I'm like, how does that work? We have the same driveway, and then the new relationships pull up and whatever. That can be very patchwork and interesting. But most couples really try, or not anymore, couples try to live close by so the kids can alternate, as most parents know that sometimes the kids can't just, you and the kid, you can't just align, and it's sometimes better to be at the other parent for several reasons. And then, if you're still having kind of a good parenting relationship, let's call it, and you just can't make it picking up after school, or they want to stay an hour longer for whatever reason, if you're flexible like that, it just makes it so much easier, I think.
Right.
If it's an option for the parents. So don't you often, Jane, find separating couples a new house close by to the old house?
Well, usually, actually, we look at catchment areas for the school.
Oh,
So
okay.
we try to determine if they're still going to be in the catchment area and how they're going to transport back and forth, and what the schedules are like. Look at bus routes and things like that. So,
Oh, yeah, makes sense.
yeah, it's it's interesting how intertwined all of our jobs are.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah,
All different pieces of the puzzle, right?
Yeah. yeah, and it's a big puzzle.
Mhm.
Well, I think anytime you're working with people on a family level, you're going to find that there's multiple other professionals who's, they're going to seek services from at any point in time, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you guys, you don't need to, if you're going through separation or divorce, you don't need to do it alone. You have a crew here who can help you, who've seen it all, right?
Mhm.
A lot. I'm not sure if I've seen everything.
Yeah, maybe
but,
not all, but
but a lot, and really surprising things. Yeah, and it's it's interesting. I love my job.
I love my job too. So we're going to close out here. So I was just wondering if you guys have anything you want to say. We're probably going to meet again, I think, in September. So anything you want to say over the summer? What to focus on? One last thing?
Well, from a financial point of view, don't spend it all on the hot tubs and gimmicks you can buy right now. There will be a life after COVID, and who knows what it's like. Keep your emergency funds, make smart decisions. My old saying, consider the outcome, and just stay healthy, and hopefully have a good summer.
Okay, Laurel.
I think if you're going through a separation or divorce right now, then the one thing I always want people to know is it's possible to advocate for yourself and set a boundary for yourself and still be kind and generous in the process. Kind and generous does not mean being a doormat.
That's what I tell my husband too.
So if you're struggling with finding that balance between being a doormat and setting your boundaries and still being kind and generous, contact us. We're happy to help you work through it. Okay.
And Lori?
I think people have just been through so much over the last 2 or 3 months, so much going on in the world and changes in daily life, to just take a breath, take it one step at a time, break things down into little pieces. If you're going through separation, divorce, tackle one thing at a time. Don't get overwhelmed by the size of it, because you'll get through it. It's just, I think everybody's in such an unusual headspace right now. And so you just need to take a breath and tackle it one thing at a time.
So I'm telling people who come to me who say they want a divorce or separation is to go to counseling first. and determine if it's a situation or the person, because sometimes it's easy to blame the person who you're with rather than the situation. Everyone's frustrated right now, and emotions are a bit high. So just take the long view, and then if you still want to separate or divorce, then I can help you figure out what the value is of your property. If you are looking to purchase right now, it's a good time. As I said, there's we're picking up in terms of listings, and we're having a late spring bump. So where we were literally cut off, I think we've kind of hit the ground running. So actually, I have to hit the ground running right now because I have to go do a showing.
Good news. Good news. That's great. We're happy to hear it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. So we'll reconvene in September. In the meantime, we are going to keep on with community talks. We'll do it once a week. So if you know somebody who wants to be on community talks, we'd love to hear you. Next week, we're doing a special one on June 30th at 10 a.m. and it's on racism in real estate. And the woman who we're talking with, Michelle, she's an absolutely fabulous realtor. She's from Ontario. She's a Black woman. She's extremely well educated. She's got a good sense of humor. It's going to be a great discussion. So I put the link in. If people want to join us, we'd love to see you. And if you have any questions about anything, contact these guys. Let me just see here. Here is your information. And take care, you guys. Have a good 8 weeks.
Oh, yes.
You too.
Thank you. Just 8 weeks. Wow.
Okay, later. Bye.
Bye.